This is a photograph of Emmett Till. In 1955, this Chicago teenager, black teenager, went down to Mississippi and he was lynched by white folk, and ostensibly the reason for this was because he had spoken to a white woman. He had flirted with a white woman, they claimed. Now, this just came back into the news because that woman, she must be in her 80s now, but she finally, it just came out. She admits that she actually manufactured the whole allegation, that he'd never even flirted with her, he'd never even spoken to her, whistled at her, nothing. They made it all up to justify. Of course, nothing justifies it. Even if he had whistled or flirted, that nothing justifies his murder. But turns out it was all made up. In any case, this is what happened. A young black man from Chicago, teenager, goes down and is lynched by white folk. Why? Because supposedly he spoke to a white woman. That's 1955. In Israel, it just happened. Okay? Just like that happened to a Chicago teen. Well, in Chicago's Israeli sister city, Petach Tikva, okay, this black man was walking right outside City Hall in November. And he walked and he saw a group of 3 Israeli teenage girls. He spoke to them. They exchanged a couple words. 10 seconds later, they're standing like behind a bench, right? Standing this far, 6, 7, 8 feet away. 10 seconds of conversation, he walks away. 10 seconds of conversation. That was enough for their friends to determine that he deserved to die. They pounced on him right in front of City Hall. And it was all filmed, of course, because there's CCTV cameras there in front of City Hall. And they filmed him beating the man to death for an hour and a half. You know, it got so bad that just like Emmett Till, I'm not going to show you what Emmett Till looked like at the end of the beating, but if you've ever seen the historic photos, his face was mauled so badly it was unrecognizable. Forget of as Emmett Till, as a human it was unrecognizable. It was a sack of mush. And that's what they did to Babakir, to this African refugee, to this black man in Chicago's sister city. They beat him so badly that his own brother could not recognize him. The only reason that that his brother was able to recognize his body was because he was a refugee from Darfur, and in the fighting, he had lost some of his fingers. And so his brother was able to make out that it was his brother's body because he lacked some fingers. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to tell because these Israeli teenagers beat him so badly till he was unrecognizable. So what happens in response to this? Does the mayor of Petach Tikva, is he shocked? Is he scandalized? Does he say, oh my goodness, we got to do something about this race hate. We got to combat this rampant racism. We need to protect black folk. No, just the opposite. He declares, Itzik Braverman, the mayor of Petach Tikva, declares that he's going to drive all the Africans out of his city. And sure enough, this is what he starts to do. He sends in his inspectors. He tells the electricity company and the water company to shut off services to apartments where black people live. And they do this. And so you have black people now having to take a bus 45 minutes to the Mediterranean Sea in order to bathe. Okay? His mission, you're a mother. You need to cook for your kids. You want to bathe your babies. But no, they don't deserve water. They don't deserve electricity. They don't deserve basic human rights. They need to be driven out, according to Itzik Braverman. Now, some of his constituents were asking him about this. Okay, that's nice that you're cutting off their power, cutting off their water. That's not quick enough. We want them gone today. We want these blacks ethnically cleansed from Petach Tikva. He's trying to explain to them, it doesn't work that way. He tells them, this is all recorded. Right? It was all recorded with an audio recording. He says, look, most of them, these African refugees, are here legally, and they do no harm. Their share of Petach Tikva's crime is small. There's no reason to crack down on them. There's no reason to evict them or expel them from town. So then what's the problem? You walk through Founders Square, you see blacks drinking beer. It's not nice. So the problem is you don't want to have to look at black people. You don't want to see them in your line of vision. That's their crime, existence. So then he explains, we can't just, I know you want to kick them all out yesterday, but understand how complicated it is. You have to find exactly those that broke the law. yes, we'd like to just round them all up willy-nilly, but unfortunately, the law, we have to, on the surface of it, we have to look legal, so we can only round up those that broke the law, trying to, instead of, explain to his racist constituents that no, it's wrong to target them, it's wrong to stigmatize them, but he's just trying to mollify them, saying, yes, I get you, we want to kick them all out in time, it'll take a little while longer than you want. I wonder if we're going to hear any comments from Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago. Is this a shared value? Are these the shared values between Petach Tikva and Chicago? And if not, can I hear you say something about it? אולי אתה רוצה להגיד משהו בעברית? אולי הפעם הבאה שאתה נפגש עם ביבי, אולי יש לך מה להגיד? Maybe next time you meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, you'll have something to say about that. And I'm sad to say this was not the first time that a black man was lynched in Israel for being a black man, and it probably won't be the last time. A year earlier, this man, the previous refugee we spoke of was from Sudan, this one's from Eritrea. So he's in Beersheba Central Bus Station. And at that time, sadly, there was a terrorist attack. A Palestinian militant came and took out a submachine gun and started spraying. A couple people died, and several people were injured. And while this terror attack is going, obviously all the other people in the crowded bus station were running in every direction, trying to flee, trying to get away from the gunfire. And he himself was one of them. People are running. He's crawling on the ground, trying to avoid the gunfire. And as he's crawling, now I'm sorry to say, look away, because what I'm about to show you is sickening and can't be taken back. But yes, this man was actually lynched, beaten to death by a mob of Israelis. Because as he was trying to escape, and again, it's all recorded on CCTV video cameras, okay? He's crawling away as the gunfire is spreading around the room, and as the security guard comes up and shoots him. Why? He's crawling away. He's not a terrorist, but he's black. And sure enough, it's not enough that he was shot lying in a pool of his own blood, because then other people start getting in on the action. They realize they can take their anger out on him. And so this man throws a chair on him, lying on the ground. And then these two men, they pick up a big bench and they slam it on him. And then this man comes and kicks him, and this man comes and kicks him, and this man comes and kicks him, and on and on and on and on and on. And when paramedics come to treat him, they're said, no. You don't treat him, treat other people, don't treat him. And they delayed and delayed and delayed, and his evacuation to the point where he died, he bled out. And this is Israel today. This is the reality on the ground for black folks. Now, those men, those prison guards who took that big bench and slammed it down on him, because it was caught on CCTV video camera, I guess no choice, they had to have some semblance of a court case. When he was asked about what he'd done, he said, I have nothing to be regretful for. If it happened again, once, twice, 20 times, I would act exactly the same 20 times. Now, as I said, got to court, and the judge decided to exonerate them for their crimes. The judge said that they had acted in a way that is expected of a prison guard, to contribute to the positive image of the prison service. Now, what I'm trying to explain to you is that if 5 years ago, when I first started talking about Israel's war on Africans, there was an effort to cover it up. There was a sense of shame around it. They didn't want the world to know. But nowadays, it's just the opposite. Netanyahu realizes that he can actually turn it into political capital. He boasts about it, in fact. He's advertising this fact in a series of tweets. He writes, a strong Israel prevents the passage of masses of refugees to Europe. He writes after Trump announces that he's going to build his wall, he says, President Trump is right. I built a wall along Israel's southern border. It stopped all illegal immigration. Great success, great idea. Now, in Israel, Netanyahu is not only building a wall to prevent other Africans from entering the country, he's also trying to round all those Africans that already exist in the country into camps. And sickeningly, the attacks on Africans aren't confined to African adults. We're talking about now acts on African children. African babies. When you look at these photos, any baby, definitely these cute babies, how could you possibly have any hate in your heart towards them? But, as we heard earlier in the introduction, there's a hatred of African babies just as there's a hatred of Palestinian babies. They represent a demographic threat. And so we have Israelis walking through downtown liberal Tel Aviv with condoms. And they walk up to areas of Tel Aviv in which African people live. And they walk up to African folks and they try to hand them condoms. They try to give them condoms and convince them to use it. We don't want you to have kids. We don't want you here, and we don't want your progeny here. We want you gone, and we won't want you to recreate yourself, all right? We don't want African folks here. Now, they're not ashamed about it. They're photographing themselves and uploading these pictures to Facebook, okay? This is the attitude towards African babies in Tel Aviv. And it's not confined only to these. And it's not only, again, I reiterate, this is African babies we're talking about. And sadly, it's not only the non-Jewish African babies, it's also the Jewish African babies that are under attack. A few months ago, this man's like a circumciser to the stars or something like that. It's a mohel, a man who does ritual circumcision, and he performs his circumcisions he boasts about, circumcising the grandchildren of members of Knesset and ministers of the government and the president himself. And so this man, he was approached by another Israeli saying, I want to learn the tricks of the trade. I want to apprentice with you. Of course, this man was not a would-be circumciser. He was actually an undercover journalist, an investigative journalist who pretended to be a wannabe apprentice, and the man took him on. For a fee, I will train you to be a circumciser. Now, of course, according to Israeli regulations, you can't just do this willy-nilly. You've got to work with someone who's an established professional. You've got to go to dozens. You've got to witness. You've got to be right there for dozens of circumcisions, witnessing them, monitoring them, observing them, before you could even touch a knife. Okay? But this man, the circumciser to the stars, says, no, don't worry about that. Just pay me the fee. It's enough. From the first day, I'll just explain. Here, chick-chack, this is all you got to do. You can already get started. How could you possibly do this? People would be up in arms. No. We don't go to Jews. We just go to the blacks. We go to the blacks, the black Jews, the black non-Jews. And these are quotes, because the man had a video camera, a secret video camera, and he filmed the rabbi explaining to him why he can cut babies without any training whatsoever. There are the regular Ethiopians, and that's the Jewish Africans, and the Sudanese, that's the non-Jewish Africans. They're worse. They're black like the N-word. Learning from them is the best. Why does everyone do it to non-Jewish babies? You can make 100 errors. We fix it. I have needle and thread. First learn here on the non-Jewish babies, and then we'll be able to do it cleanly to Jews. Even if you make mistakes, you can fix them. They don't even understand what a mistake is. They're cannon fodder. Whatever you do, no problem. Even if you cut crooked, they won't say anything because they don't understand anything. This is the discourse in Israel around black folks. This is the level of anti-blackness. Now, this wasn't a surprise to black Jews, to Ethiopian Jews, because for several years already they've known that the Israeli government implemented a policy of requiring their mothers to take long-term birth control injections as a precondition for being allowed to move to Israel. No other Jewish person from Russia or from America or any other part of the world was required to do this, but they don't want black babies. So they required black women to undergo this, birth control in order to have the right to move to Israel. And that's why in recent years you have Ethiopian Israelis taking to the streets, protesting state-sponsored racism against them. In the last few months, we even have hundreds of African Israelis, Ethiopian Jews, saying we're not going to serve in the army anymore. We refuse. Because the state sponsored racism towards us, we were refusing to serve in the army. We're refusing to do reserve duty.